There are men walking around today carrying invisible chains, not chains made of iron, not chains around their hands, but chains around their mind. Chains made from guilt, chains made from old mistakes, chains made from things they did years ago that somehow still follow them into every conversation, every disagreement, every argument, and every moment of tension. You know what I'm talking about. You made a mistake 3 years ago. You apologized. You changed. You matured. You worked on yourself. But somehow, the past never stays buried. Every disagreement becomes a history lesson. Every discussion becomes an investigation. Every conflict suddenly opens a permanent record of your failures. It is like someone has a secret archive of every wrong thing you ever did. The words you said when you were immature, the decisions you made when you were struggling, the moments you fell emotionally, the seasons when you lack wisdom, the mistakes you already regret deeply. And somehow, no matter how much time passes, those moments keep returning. Many men are emotionally exhausted because of this, not because they refuse accountability, not because they believe they are perfect, but because they are trying to become better while constantly being reminded of who they used to be. Listen carefully, man. Your mistakes are part of your story, but they are not your identity. There is a difference. A mistake is something you did. It is not who you are permanently. But if you hear your failures repeated enough times, eventually you begin to believe that your worst moments define your entire existence. That is dangerous. Because once a man starts believing he can never escape his past, he slowly stops believing in his future. He stops growing confidently. He stops speaking freely. He stops expressing himself honestly. He begins walking carefully all the time, afraid that one wrong word will reopen wounds from years ago. And over time, that pressure changes him. Some men become emotionally numb. Some men become silent. Some men lose confidence in themselves. Some men stop feeling worthy of love, respect, or peace because they constantly feel judged by an outdated version of themselves. But hear this clearly. You are not the same man you were 5 years ago. Pain changes people. Experience changes people. Failure changes people. Responsibility changes people. The men who struggled before may now be wiser. The men who once reacted emotionally may now have self-control. The man who once made selfish choices may now sacrifice daily for his family. Growth is real, and one of the cruelest things someone can do is refuse to acknowledge your growth while continuing to replay your failures. Healthy correction is one thing, permanent condemnation is another. There is a difference between accountability and emotional punishment. A healthy relationship addresses problems to heal. An unhealthy relationship uses the past to maintain control. And many men never realize this. They spend years trying to prove they are no longer the men they used to be. They work harder. They communicate better. They become more patient. They become more responsible. Yet somehow, one disagreement can erase years of growth in a single moment. Suddenly, the conversation is no longer about today. Now it is about what happened 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And men began asking themselves a painful question. What is the point of changing if I will never be seen differently? That question destroys many men internally. Because every human being needs room to evolve. Nobody wants to remain trapped forever inside the worst chapter of their life. Think about this carefully. If a man spends his entire life paying for old mistakes that he already corrected, eventually he begins living with permanent shame. And shame is dangerous. Guilt says, I made a mistake. Shame says, I'm the mistake. There is a massive difference between the two. One leads to growth, the other leads to self-destruction. Many men today are silently carrying emotional weight nobody talks about. They smile outside while internally feeling like failures. Why? Because every attempt to move forward gets interrupted by reminders of who they used to be. Listen carefully. This message is not about avoiding responsibility. If you hurt someone, apologize. If you lied, own it. If you failed, learn from it. If you broke trust, rebuild it honestly. Real men take accountability, but accountability should lead to growth, not lifelong emotional imprisonment. A prison sentence without release eventually destroys the human spirit, and some men are emotionally serving life sentences for mistakes they made years ago. That's not healing, that is emotional captivity. A relationship cannot survive if forgiveness never truly exists, because real forgiveness does not constantly reload old weapons during every argument. When someone truly forgives, they allow space for transformation. And transformation is one of the most powerful things a human being can experience. People can change. The angry man can become calm. The selfish man can become generous. The irresponsible man can become dependable. The immature man can become wise. But growth becomes difficult when somebody insists on keeping your old identity alive forever. Imagine trying to run forward while someone constantly pulls your shirt backward. Eventually you become exhausted. That is exactly what men feel emotionally. Every time they try to move forward, the past grabs them again, and over time they stop fighting. Some men stop communicating because they are tired of being misunderstood. Some men start opening up emotionally because vulnerability gets used against them later. Some men stop explaining themselves because they feel nothing will ever change the narrative about who they are. Now listen to this carefully because this part matters deeply. You cannot build a healthy future while permanently living in the courtroom of the past. At some point, healing requires release. At some point, growth must be acknowledged. At some point, a man deserves to be seen for who he is becoming, not only for who he once was. And man, you must understand something important. You cannot spend your entire life begging people to update their perception of you. Some people become emotionally attached to your old mistakes because it gives them power. As long as you feel guilty, you remain easier to control. As long as you feel ashamed, you remain easier to silence. As long as you feel unworthy, you remain easier to manipulate. But a mature man eventually realizes this. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I have regrets. Yes, I failed in certain moments. But I refuse to let my past become my permanent identity. True strength is not pretending to be perfect. True strength is confronting your flaws honestly while still believing you deserve growth, peace, and redemption. The strongest men are not men without scars. The strongest men are those who survived failure without allowing failure to define them forever. Every great man has a history. Every wise man has regrets. Every mature man has memories that still hurt him. But wisdom comes from learning, not from self-hatred. Some men are still mentally punishing themselves for things nobody else even remembers anymore. And that guilt slowly destroys their confidence. Listen carefully. You do not honor your future by living in endless shame. Learn the lesson. Take responsibility. Become better. But keep moving forward. Do not build your home inside your regrets. Your past is a teacher, not a prison cell. And man, another truth you need to hear is this. People who truly love you should inspire growth, not permanent guilt. A person who only reminds you of your failures while ignoring your progress can slowly damage your spirit. Because encouragement creates transformation faster than humiliation ever will. Nobody grows best while constantly feeling condemned. A man grows best when he believes improvement is possible. That is why you must protect your mind. Do not allow repeated criticism to become your inner voice. Do not allow old mistakes to erase current progress. And most importantly, do not allow your lowest moments to become your permanent identity. You are more than your failures. You are more than the worst thing you ever did. You are more than the mistakes you made when you lack wisdom, maturity, discipline, or direction. The man you were before does not have to control the man you become next. That is the beauty of growth. Every day is another opportunity to evolve. Every day is another opportunity to become calmer, stronger, wiser, more disciplined, and more emotionally mature. But transformation only happens when you stop chaining yourself to your old identity. And maybe some men watching this right now need to hear this deeply. Forgive yourself, not because your mistakes were acceptable, not because your failures did not matter, but because you cannot heal while permanently hating yourself. Self-hatred never creates growth. It only creates emotional exhaustion. You cannot become stronger while constantly destroying yourself mentally. Stand up. Learn from your past. Accept responsibility. But refuse to live as a prisoner of old mistakes. Because life keeps moving forward. And one day, the same people who only remembered your failures will witness your transformation. Not because you defended yourself constantly, but because your actions eventually become louder than your past. Remember this always. Your worst chapter is not your whole story. The man you are becoming matters more than the man you used to be. And real growth begins the moment you stop allowing old mistakes to decide your value.